This right here is where Europe is massively dependent on the United States. But is this dependency somewhat smart, or did Europe trade one reliance for another? Let me explain. Here, these high-pressure tankers unload so-called liquefied natural gas. Gas that's cooled down so much that it becomes a liquid and easier to transport. And the United States supplied about 90% of Germany's LNG and 45% of the EU's LNG in 2024. Because the European Union also gets gas through pipelines, the United States supplied about 16% of the total of the bloc's gas. But the significant share raises the question, is Europe just as dependent on energy from the US now as it was from gas from Russia a couple of years ago? Well, if Donald Trump has his way, that dependency will worsen. Because he's asking the bloc to buy even more LNG. Liquefied gas is fed into Europe's gas grid, where it is delivered to then run power plants, heat homes, and is crucial for heavy and chemicals industries. To understand why this shift is such a big deal, we need to look back to 2021. Back then, the EU imported 45% of all of its gas from Russia, but with Moscow's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, that relationship shattered. The EU hit back with sanctions, and Russia stopped most of its pipeline deliveries.
The big problem with the Russian gas was there was a whole European system built upon pipelines bringing Russian gas to particular points, particularly in Central Europe.
So when gas deliveries began to dwindle, that was painful for industries that had relied on this gas. Now the EU plans to phase out any Russian gas imports by 2027. A central part of that strategy are these LNG terminals that governments rapidly build to import liquefied gas, and the existing ones like Rerouted in Belgium. In 2024, some of that LNG still came from Russia, some came from Qatar and other countries. But a large part of that LNG came from the United States. So did Europe trade one gas dependence for another?
There's one really big difference, which is that all of this American gas is being imported by ships into European ports. Now, in a scenario where these ships stop coming to Europe, it will be much easier to replace these flows than it would be the Russian gas.
Russian pipelines are a fixed structure, tying economies closely together. The LNG tankers are a market solution that flexibly adjusts to the highest bidder. If the US were to drop out as a supplier, other providers could, in theory, reroute their ships towards Europe. That would mean European countries would enter into a bidding war with other consumers, say in Asia. So this new system offers Europe more flexibility, but it leaves the continent exposed to fossil fuel markets and their politics.